Hi, my name is Jonathan Perera,
Hi, I'm Onome Akinbode-James.
and this is our CAD Module Project.
Are some of our pieces. We see some kings, a rook, some knights, and the rings. And we have a couple more pieces printing and in the works right now.
So some of the tools we used when we were creating this project were revolve and extrude. And let me tell you a little bit about those two tools. So some of the shapes that really work well with extrusion and lend themselves well to be created by extrusion is anything in a uniplanar direction and that has the same face on both sides. Something like a rectangular prism, a triangular prism, anything that has the same face and has to be extended in the middle. Some of the limits of extrusions are that you can't extrude in an angular bending fashion and it's only in one planar direction. So my friend Onome will tell you a little bit about the other tool we use, which was revolving.
So for the revolve, some of the tools that lend themselves, some of the shapes that lend themselves well to revolving is basically anything that works around an axis of rotation. For example, a ring. Like a ring was a definite, a good example of a shape that would lend itself well to revolving because you could just have a little axis of rotation right around the middle and you could just revolve the shape all around. Some of the limitations that come with revolving is that the revolve tool does the same thing all the way around. So any modifications that need to be done after the revolve has been done. And it was a big struggle, especially with our queen, because to create the crown of the queen, we needed to revolve the queen and then make the crown later on.
Yeah.
Because it was just like even all the way around and we needed like extra shapes. So any extra shapes or extra modifications that need to be made need to be done after the revolve has been done.
And that's another extra step. So let's talk about the best orientation for printing and going about choosing that orientation. So you definitely want to choose the surface that's the most flat to keep on the printer bed. For example, in this king, that surface would be down here. If you were to choose the sides, it would make it a lot harder for the printer simply because the surfaces are curved, and that would include a lot of support for the printer to build supports. But having a flat surface makes it easier because it's flat and the printer can work up from there. Are there multiple good orientations? And that's a question that is really contextual, and that depends on the piece you're printing. If you have a cuboid shape or something rectangular prism-like, it doesn't really matter simply because both sides are flat and no supports are really needed. But if you have a shape like a ring that has curved surfaces, it is really, really important what side you use because you want the smoothest design and the smoothest print. And having it in this orientation would create a lot of supports, while having it in this orientation would create no supports at all. And there's a big difference in the smoothness of the print. So why do some pieces print supports while others do not?
A ring, for example, doesn't require any support for the base, but as you go up along the sides of the ring, there's no extra plastic underneath it, so it needs some kind of support to keep it up. So basically, any object that doesn't have prior plastic printing underneath it needs some sort of support so it can dry. For like our pawn, which is still printing right now, it has a little bit of
an extension, right?
Yes, extension onto the. It needs like some extra support for the top to be able to stay up because there's nothing holding it up from the bottom.
So what sequence should you choose for drawing your stand efficiently? The sequence I used was going from bottom to top and building it piece to piece.
And the sequence I used was basically using a canvas to make a sketch and then just revolving the pieces around.
And it really depends on which method you prefer. I prefer building it from bottom to the top.
And I thought using sketching to revolve was pretty easy, yeah.
So what worked well in this construction and what didn't? Something that we struggled with early on was sizing and figuring out what the scale was in the printer. Initially, I had this big print that took about 14 hours to print. You had a big ring.
Yeah, I had this pretty big ring, which is more like a bracelet.
And again, with this other ring that I had to make. And it took some time, and we eventually got to the proper sizes that we wanted to. Did I see any artisan defects? Yes, with my knight, because I have this little overhang that was a bit troublesome for the printer to print. So I printed it again and it didn't solve the problem. So what I did was I actually fashioned some pieces of plastic and I stuck it on top to kind of smoothen out the ridges and the little frayed plastic pieces over there. It also took a long time to learn the basics of the software.
Fusion 360 definitely took a while, at least for the the first print took a long time, and then as you figured it out, it got a little bit better.
And that was one of the main challenges, just learning the basics and understanding the software. In conclusion, something we took from this module were the basic skills of 3D printing and designing in AutoCAD. I came into this knowing nothing about 3D design, and I can confidently say that I can design something and print it now. And I'm also very comfortable with the OS system and just the workings of it.
And really getting comfortability with like the different versions of different types of creation. So like with extrusion and revolving and using
Different
all
tools.
of them for different tools basically in one print was definitely really useful, and especially going forward and like prototyping for our designs and during the engineering design process.
Definitely.